is the project I have created for us to do together as an act of self-love and compassion. And I want to thank you for inspiring me, because it's something that I've actually wanted to make for myself for quite a while, and I had no idea how the project was going to manifest, but this is what it has turned out like, and I love it. So hopefully you will enjoy making it too. It's basically, in essence, I decided that though the symbol of this heart shape is quite cliche, I think, now when it comes to expressing our love, especially with the invention of emojis and that sort of thing. They're used so frequently on Facebook, etc. I really thought that actually, though we often give that that shape away so easily to so many others, we very rarely give it to ourselves. And so so that's why I wanted to do this for you. In essence, it's a Valentine to ourselves, because I'm sure. There we go. This is what we're making, and I hope you enjoy. Catch you real soon. Alrighty, welcome to our Valentine's to Ourselves creative project. We need first a cereal box or a muesli bar box, cracker box, some sort of lightweight card, and we're going to draw a heart shape on it. Just freehand, doesn't have to be symmetrical, doesn't have to be perfect, and this is going to be the largest heart of 3. So just bear in mind not to make it too small, but it doesn't have to be too big either. Whatever fits naturally with the material you're using and what is easy and natural for you to draw. Then you will need some paper of some sort. I'm using old book pages, but you could use wrapping paper, tissue paper, junk mail, newsprint, whatever paper you've got lying around the house. It can be coloured, it doesn't have to be plain. This is just the fit with the style that I was going for, but you do whatever works for you. And then you will draw a number of smaller heart shapes on that paper and cut them all out. You don't have to draw them first, you could just cut them out freehand if that works for you. Again, they can all be random sizes and random heart shapes. This is not about perfection or symmetry. This is just about what flows naturally to you. Okay, and now you'll need some glue. I'm using PVA, but you could use a glue stick, any sort of glue that you have around the house. If you don't happen to have glue, you can easily make paste out of flour and water like we used to do when we were kids. It will work for this project, and it's easy enough to make. There are plenty of glue recipes on Pinterest or YouTube if you get stuck. And we're going to take each one of these little paper hearts that we have cut out, and we're going to glue them around the outside of the big card heart. And we're going to glue one on the front and one on the back. I found it easiest to do the front and the back at the same time rather than doing the whole front side and then going back and doing the whole back side, but you do what works for you. And just a tip, if your glue is not sticking too well to the shiny side of the card, if you're using a cereal box, the printed side, you can give it a quick sand with some sandpaper. That will help with being able to glue things to it. So this is a really quick and simple art project, and I really feel like that is what we need at this time. Now is not the time to be feeling like we are missing opportunities and not doing enough. We've been given this opportunity to really step back, take a break, and trust that the opportunities are there for us and they will manifest. We don't have to create them, they've already been created. All the work that we have created up until this point is enough. We have done enough, and now is our time to allow and let it all flow. So as we finish off this first heart and the layer of hearts around the outside of it, that is just a representation of just pure love that we can offer ourselves in this time. The second heart that we are cutting out is slightly smaller. It is going to fit inside that larger heart that we've completed. We actually will need 2 of these hearts this size, and we're just going to do the same thing. However, I have changed the paper that I'm using for the border of this layer, so I'm just using a brown paper bag. Again, just use whatever you have to hand. You know, book pages, wrapping paper, tissue paper, crepe paper, magazine pages, old phone book pages, dictionary pages, whatever you can find will work. And we're basically just going to do the same technique as we did for the first layer. However, 2 hearts this size, as I said before, and this time we are only going to put the outside layer of hearts on one side of the card rather than both sides. If your mind starts to wander during this part of the creative process, just gently bring it back to love for yourself and visualize every little heart that you're gluing onto this page as a portion of love going back into your own heart. It's very simple. We don't want lots of really deep meaning or anything like that. We just want love and compassion. So we're going to do that on both of that size of heart. As you can see, I have some already made. And then we are going to do another 2 hearts, smaller again, that will fit inside these 2 hearts that we have just done. So again, tracing it onto lightweight card, freehand, the shape doesn't matter, just small enough that it will fit inside that border that you have just created on the medium-sized heart, and we want 2 of them. And our process is going to be slightly different this time. So first off, we are going to cover the whole heart in paper of some description. I'm using an old dictionary page, but you could use book pages, again, wrapping paper, whatever paper you can find, junk mail, you could cut an image out of a magazine, anything that you can think of. You could use fabric if you wanted to. We're just going to cover up that entire heart, both of those 2 smaller hearts, and then trim off the edges if you've got anything overhanging. It will be easier to do this if your glue is dry, which I didn't wait for because I have no patience. But luckily I prepared 2 small hearts earlier. Now I'm just checking to see that it all fits nicely, and these are the 2 hearts that I did earlier. I actually used a paper serviette to cover these 2 smaller hearts, which looks really cool, I think. Now for the hearts around the border of this, I have found an old piece of net curtain that I am just freehand cutting heart shapes out of. These are very random shapes. It's hard to cut something and get a uniform shape when the material you're using has got big holes in it, but it looks really cool. And again, you don't have to use net curtain. You could use any material that you have to hand. You can use fabric, paper, just whatever speaks to you. You could use ribbon, I guess, if you've got ribbon, whatever you have on hand and what speaks to you. So the same process going around the outside of both of these 2 small hearts and creating a border effect. I am using a different glue for this net fabric. It needed a stronger glue than PVA. Glue stick would probably work, however, if you have a glue stick. They're actually quite strong and good for fabric. But yeah, just use what you have on hand. So we've just about finished decorating our 3 hearts. 3 is quite a magical number. It represents wholeness and completion. It's also the number of creativity. It represents maiden, mother, and crone. It represents past, present, and future. There are lots of things that the number 3 represents. I like that it's a very creative number, and I tend to use sets of 3 in a lot of my pieces of art. Now we get to stick all of these pieces we've been working so hard on together. So we take the large heart, which has the double-sided border, and on each side of that we're going to stick a medium heart and a small heart. It's a good idea to let the glue dry between layers, and you can use a rice bag, which is what you just saw there, to make sure the pieces lie flat and stick properly. Glue stick is a really good glue also to use for this if PVA is not cutting the mustard. Let each layer dry in between the next layer if you need to make sure it sticks well and is flat. So both sides of the big heart now have a medium and a small heart on top of it, and that's our heart put together. Then what I wanted to do is add a little bit of colour because this was quite a neutral piece and I'm not big on neutrals. So I have some water soluble pastels, but you could use watercolor paint or just water down some acrylic paint if you don't happen to have any paint, but I'm sure you do, Deb. You could use food coloring watered down. You could just use colored pencil. Again, chalk. Another really good thing is eyeshadows make really cool color for edges and stuff like that. So I'm just going around the outside edge of this heart on both sides with the water soluble pastel, still in a fairly neutral color, but it just added one more hue to it, I suppose. And then I'm using just a paintbrush with water to blend it all in nicely. Turned out pretty cool, I think. Yeah, eyeshadow makes a really cool coloring tool if you don't have anything else, and you get really cool colors in eyeshadows these days. Chalk, there's lots of different things you could use for this part of the project. I'm all about getting people to think creatively about what they have around the home, and now, well, we're in lockdown, is a really good time to do that. The next thing I wanted was to grunge it up a little bit because I like grungy pieces of art. So I'm just using a black ink pad and going around the outside edge. Again, you could just use a black anything eyeshadow. You could use a black marker, just a pencil would work, or you don't even have to do it at all if you don't want to. It was just something that I wanted to do. And now I wanted to put some finishing touches on what will be the front side of the heart. So I just have some little fabric flowers that I'm adding on. Just look around your house and see what you've got. You might have embellishments attached to clothing that you never wear anymore that you could use. You might have ribbon. You might have pictures in a magazine that you can cut out. Try and think creatively about what you could add as a little piece of decoration if you want to. And then I'm also putting on a little bat because I love bats. Bats are my favorite mammal, so I wanted to put one of those on there. And that is our piece basically finished. Now we are going to be putting this into our Altered Book art journal as a page. But you could, if you didn't want to do that, you could punch a hole in the top and put some ribbon on it to hang it. You can just leave it as it is, or frame it and keep it on display somewhere as a reminder of all of the love and compassion you deserve to give yourself every day. And that's it. I really hope you've enjoyed creating today, and thanks so much for being here with me. I'll see you again soon.